All right. Thank you so much for the invitation and the introduction, Jason. Thank you for hanging out with us. It's always so energetic to be here. TMCI is a place where I think there are bold ideas that can come to life, and everyone in the audience has a passion for bringing those bold ideas to life. So today I want to share a story with you all, a story of how we are so passionate about bringing breakthroughs to bedside, right? And with a specific focus on developing and implementing a brain-computer interface platform for our patients with disorders of consciousness at TR Memorial Hermann. But before I get started, I want to clarify something. This is not a story about a shiny new breakthrough invention. This is also not a story about science. This is a story about the quiet, grueling kind of work that often gets unnoticed in what it actually takes to take those kind of breakthroughs and channel them through very complicated, ossified healthcare systems and processes and be able to bring it to our patients. So the way I see it, this is the story about persistence, this is the story about people, and this is the story about passion. Because without passion, I don't think we can do this work, and hopefully we would be able to communicate a little bit of that. So let me get started by talking about what many of you all have probably heard is called the paradox in healthcare innovation. And multiple people have described that. The way I look at it is a tension between the resistance and the reward, right? And there are multiple sources of resistance, and some of them I just sort of jotted down over here. I don't think it is news to anyone who has been in the healthcare field that when you work in a complicated healthcare system, you face that resistance. But there is a reason why we face that resistance. If we think about healthcare systems, they are primarily designed to protect. When we became physicians, we took an oath and we say, do no harm. And that is still the principle around which healthcare is built. And so these healthcare systems do not like variation. If you have ever worked in a healthcare system and something wrong happens, guess what we do? We file a variance report. It's actually called a variance report because some variation in process happened that led to a safety event, a quality event, an undesirable event, right? And then on the other side, what is innovation? Innovation is all about variance. Innovation is about changing. Innovation is about building and breaking and failing and rebuilding. So that tension between the healthcare system and the innovation is always going to be there, right? So when we want to innovate in the healthcare space, this is something that we have to think about. And we have to work with the resistance and through the resistance, not around the resistance, right? And the reason why we want to do that, because the payoff to innovate is really big. And we are not only talking about devices, we are talking about processes, we are talking about people, we are talking about systems. And if we do not innovate, we know the consequences, the patient outcomes and the safety experience and the burnout, efficiencies in the systems, equity and access, and of course the scientific process gets stalled. So in this journey of breakthrough to bedside, let's start from the bedside. The patients that we are talking about are very critically ill patients. They have had severe brain injuries. It can be due to stroke, it can be due to trauma, it can be due to tumors, but these brain injuries essentially leave them in some kind of a comatose, semi-comatose, or a vegetative state. At TR Memorial Hermann, we also know, like many other people, that consciousness cannot be classified into boxes, right? The brain activity is not a categorical phenomena. The brain activity is a continuous phenomena. And despite the fact that these patients have impaired consciousness, they do have brain activity. Our current modern day tools, though, do not help us much in being able to study that on a continuum. They help us in categorizing these patients. And hence, the cost of doing that is that we have up to 40% of misdiagnosis in these patients. What does that mean? 40% of misdiagnosis means 40% of missed opportunity to identify the right kind of patient who can benefit from rehab and have good outcomes. 40% of misdiagnosis means 40% denial of care and severe consequences. So we started thinking about this, and of course, at Tier Memorial Hermann, the program for disorders of consciousness is one of the leading programs in terms of clinical care and research. So what is the innovation? Enter brain-computer interface. I'm sure a lot of you all have heard about brain-computer interface, but just to recap really quickly, BCIs allow acquisition of brain signals, acquisition of brain activity, and then analyzing those signals, translating them into actionable commands, and then even facilitating the loss of neuronal and the motor connection that has happened through this technology. They can identify covert consciousness in patients who appear unresponsive, and these neural activity patterns can actually help us not only classify these patients better at their baseline, but also monitor their progress as they are going through phases of rehabilitation and tailor and customize, personalize that rehab therapy based on what we are seeing. So we got really interested in that, and then we have set up a IRB research study, which is called the Integrate. I'm the PI on that, which explores a specific brain-computer interface device in our patients with disorders of consciousness. So what is this device? The device is a triangulation of 3 technologies. It's a EEG-based brain-computer interface with an augmented reality platform and an artificial intelligence framework built into the device. It is the first wireless BCI device. It's non-invasive with all these 3 technologies in one system. And it is a breakthrough. It was designated a breakthrough device by the FDA for treatment in ALS patients. And it integrates, of course, artificial intelligence. The visor, the front interface actually allows for communication, and in certain conditions, patients can actually communicate with their loved ones, and the loved ones and the caregivers can see the responses that the patients are giving and actually communicate back and forth. So it's a standalone device. It does not require the patient to be tethered to any sort of a platform, and that is really, that attracted us a lot, because in rehab, we are trying to move these patients around. So if a patient has a device, they are on their wheelchair, they are on their bed, we can transport them around, and then the device is moving with them. This is a little bit more of what, oops, I think I jumped to. This is a little bit of what the device looks like. As I was explaining, there is a visor, there are electrodes. So think of it as like an input-output system. The input is through the brain activity, and there are electrodes that are reading that. It has an onboard nucleus, this white box, which is actually live decoding, classifying. All the machine learning that needs to happen with those raw data is going on board on the device. And then it is spitting out process data in what is called the LSL layer that we can see on any desktop. The device also has the capacity to be expandable. The robotic arm that you see towards the end is hypothetical, it's not practical, but it could be attached to a external exoskeleton device, a robotic arm, and then the patient can control that through their brain activity. But this is the true story. In early 2024, we got introduced to this concept. As you can probably see in the pictures, we did a first sort of like a user test, and we brought the device in, and we had a lot of our clinicians test the device, and there was a lot of excitement. It was a true breakthrough, and we felt that excitement that was very palpable. Memorial Hermann System has an innovation hub. We built a project, we created that project, and we got approved and funded to channel this project through our innovation hub in August of 2024. And then 14 months went by, and then for those 14 months were months where you see all the steps: contracting, vendor management, cybersecurity, regulatory approvals, procurement, logistics, workforce training, data analytics. But after 14 months, in October of this year, we have implemented the device, the first in human use of this device for patients with disorders of consciousness. So I'm sure you all are aware of that, and the lessons probably learned from all of this, that we feel are important, and with an audience like that we can share, is that innovation does not, in a healthcare system, innovation does not necessarily move at the speed of discovery. Innovation moves at the speed of alignment. How quickly you can align different partners, different processes, different channels through a healthcare system to really bring a breakthrough to the bedside. The systems do not resist innovation. They protect patients. They protect patients, they protect customers, and we have to understand that, and we have to work through that resistance. Sustained leadership commitment is absolutely critical. As I think Jason was mentioning, I couldn't hear back there, these innovations will fail in the hallway, and that's where the hallway is. And that leadership commitment is really important to keep the things going. I think we have to think about building infrastructure, not just pilots. Because what's happening in the healthcare system right now is that innovation is happening in a separate space. Clinical care is happening in a separate space. And the scalability of that intervention is almost never happening. So we have to really think about that connective tissue that can bring together the workforce, that can bring together the innovation, and have that infrastructure ready so that we can pilot new studies, new opportunities, new products rapidly while understanding what the system requires us to do. So that is where we think the true change is going to come from. The culture is the enabler. A lot of people, Steve Jobs' talk is very famous where he talks about stay curious, and curiosity is the mother of all invention. And you have to, we believe that curiosity is important, but culture is even more important when it comes to implementing something in the healthcare system. And the rewards are great, right? So while we were working on all of this, Cognition, who has built this device, has now started a clinical trial with Apple Vision among ALS patients. So the technology is moving forward. The same device was also given Time Invention of the Year award within the same 14-month period that we were working with the company. So the reward of working with this resistance is really to be engaged in that level of activity and bringing innovation. As I leave you all today, I want to share a little bit of a concept of where we think innovation sits in a healthcare system. So at TIER and at Memorial Hermann, our focus is on building that cement. And we think that cement, that connective tissue, is a learning healthcare system. And that is where the true revolution in healthcare needs to happen. And the innovation then becomes a part of that healthcare system, and then that healthcare system enables a workforce development that not only is passionate about innovation, but also understands how to work through a healthcare system and bring about that innovation. And that gives opportunities like this. That gives opportunities for inter and intra-collaborative projects and homegrown innovation and research, which builds value, which is based on patient outcomes, experience, innovation, and research. So the true work, I believe, in the healthcare system is to think about innovation, but really think about where innovation is truly going to sit in the healthcare environment. Thank you all.